Welcome back to Living Passionately with Pat Brown. Always elated to come to you to bring you information that you might find motivating, inspirational, or educational. Today, we are bringing you some educational information that is so important to us and our families and friends. Today, I have the pleasure of having with me on the show Miss Tonette Williams, attorney, and Alva Stuart, funeral director. And I would have them both introduce themselves and tell us about their services and what they're offering and what we are talking about today.
Hi, my name is Alva Stuart. I am the owner of Stuart Funeral Services, a full service funeral home. When I say full service, I mean I'm one of the few funeral homes that offer pre-need. We also service persons at need. I know that's the traditional service of a funeral home, servicing the deceased and their family. We specialize in personalized cremation, burial services, memorial services at the time of passing. And we also specialize in aftercare. That just means that after the funeral, I do my usual check-ins with you and we can put the pieces back together. All of that good stuff, putting things back to place, we help with. So full service funeral service. We are located in Brooklyn, New York, but we service all boroughs, all counties, and all countries. That's correct. If your loved one passed away here, we can get them repatriated to their home country. So full service funeral service.
Awesome information. And I have seen some of your services and impressive job is all I can say.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tonette Williams. I'm an attorney licensed in New York and New Jersey. I am the founder of the Planners Project Law Firm located in Queens, New York. I primarily focus on estate planning, incapacity planning, Medicaid planning, and special needs planning. I also help families with probate administration. So that means taking you through the court process for getting your deceased loved ones' assets settled after their death. We have what I do, I like to call it life and legacy planning, going beyond estate planning, because in addition to taking care of the assets and making sure that they go to the family members in the way that you want them to, we also have a focus on sharing legacy. So those are your values that are important to you. We help you find a way to pass them on to your loved ones. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me this evening, Kat.
Sure, and I love that, and I want us to put a pin on sharing legacy because I think that is so important. We often hear about leaving a legacy behind, but what does that really mean for a lot of people? Sometimes a lot of times we don't want to talk about funeral planning. We don't want to talk about estate planning because we think that, like if you do it, like you're somehow opening up, I don't know, a can of worms, or it's a hard subject for a lot of people to want to face, right? And I know especially like things like putting a will in place, we think that we have to be older to do that. I want you to tell us a little bit, Tonette, about what type of like assets would you say someone should have, or what type of age you think people should start thinking about estate planning?
So estate planning is really appropriate for anyone as soon as they're over the age of 18. Now, of course, it's something that a lot of people don't consider until they get older because it is very much about what happens at the time of your death. But estate planning is not just about what happens after your death. It's also about taking care of yourself in the event of an incapacity or illness. So even when you turn 18, because no one has the legal authority to act on your behalf unless you give them written authority to do so. So from the time you're 18, you have some parents that would encourage their children to just do like a power of attorney or a medical power of attorney. So that would allow parents to still make financial or medical decisions for their children in the event of any kind of accident. And I also have this cohort of clients where it might be in their late 30s or 40s, especially when they have young children, especially when they are unmarried with young children, because that's so crucial to think about how how your assets would be available for your young children for their care. So it really runs the gamut as to the kind of clients I work with. But I'd
Mhm.
certainly say that if you're over the age of 18, it's just some of the things you want to start having the conversations and communication with your loved ones about.
For myself and speaking to others, that sometimes we're just not sure when to start that process, or we think that we got to have a lot of assets to
Yes.
really, yeah, start getting into estate planning. And I don't know, like we don't we always say that there are two things in life you have to do. You got to pay taxes and you're going to die, right? And I think those
Yeah.
are two things that we don't like to face.
Yeah, no, that's true. And honestly, estate planning is really about both of those. It's about what happens when you die, and it's also about that tax obligation, finding ways to minimize tax obligations when you're transferring your assets, because there are things that you can do beforehand with planning to minimize not just taxes, but court fees and other kind of expenses that you might incur if you don't do that planning ahead of time. And when I say you incur, it's really your family incurs it, right? Because you have passed on, but it's really your family that's left to try to deal with your estate. So I always say that you do planning so that what you leave your family is a gift and not a problem.
And I'm sure, Alva, you've seen it over and over, right? So one dies, you love them so much, you think that we all get along well, family, always family. And then it's time to plan that funeral. And then what happens?
Well, every day, all day, I come in contact with families who, as I say, they have to grieve three times. They grieve because of the laws, they grieve financially, and they grieve, legally, because it's such a mess. I remember I read an article where a son was writing to his mom that passed, and he said, "Mom, I wish you could come back and see the mess that you made."
Oh, wow.
So, yes, it was a letter he was writing, because it is a mess. It is a mess when we don't put things in place.
Yeah.
So many different family fights, disputes. And you know what? Pre-planning, you're not planning a funeral. It could be a basic plan where you can let your family know your wishes. Would you want to
Right.
be cremated or buried?
Hmm.
Do you want,
Right. Right.
yeah, do you have a plot already? What would you want have done to your property and stuff like that? Or it could be very detailed in terms of funeral planning. You could
Right.
write your obituary, you can choose your type of casket. So there are different levels of it. But some plan is better than no plan. And
Right.
as I said, I've seen family members where they're never expected in life that their family members will fight after a death. And I've
Hmm.
seen it come to light that, a family member once said, "Wow, Alva, you were right. I never thought that my brother would act this way since my mom died." As a funeral home, telling people to do the right things, have some income protection. Life insurance or income protection replaces your income, as you know, after
Right.
passing. And there's some people that, yes, they do have a policy or insurance policy, but when it's time to, call the company and tell them, "Hey, John Doe passed away, they need the funds," then we find out that these policies were not what the family thought it was, whether it's an accidental
Policy.
policy
Yeah.
and the person did not die of an accident, so that policy
Right.
paid out. Or
Hmm.
you find out further down the line that mom took out a loan on the policy. And then
Right.
what happens, that
Yeah.
loan will be paid back first. And you think
Mhm.
mom had insurance, but it's none. So all of these things, I
Yeah.
have so much scenarios that I see when people don't plan.
Yeah, I've actually seen that where someone had left a policy behind, but when they went to cash in the policy, there was a loan on the policy. And my friend, she was very surprised that there was a loan out on her policy. It wasn't a very large policy, to start with. So they had to kind of reduce the type of service that they wanted. Fortunately, it was enough to still give a proper burial. But, having to deal with that and the loss of your loved one, especially that it was kind of unexpected at the time, makes it very hard. And, I tell people all the time, like, I believe in insurance. And as a single mom, I always try to maintain my insurance doing, because you want to make sure that your children in a burden are burden to someone. We have to think more along those lines of what we're leaving our kids, in a better situation than we were. I know a lot of times my daughter would say, Mommy, why are we talking about this? I said, just in case, I want you to know. I know that she's older. Going back to Tonette, I just love this subject on planning. And tell us a little about your business, Tonette, the name of your business, in case people want to get in touch with you.
So it's called the Planners Project Law Firm. I am online, www.tppfirm.com. So TPP for the Planners Project. So a lot of my business, probably I'd say 80% of my business is estate planning. That's what I like to do. I say to people that another part of my business is probate administration and then estate litigation. I don't love taking families to court. I don't like having to be in court with families. But, if there's no planning or an inadequate planning, court is just essential. But primarily I'm doing estate planning. So it's me sitting down with people at a time when they have the time and capacity to think about what they have and how they want to pass it on, and who are the best people to carry out that mission. So that's the part of my business that I love. That's the part I love talking about and educating people about, to let them know that there's so many options and so many things you can do before your death or before any kind of illness that would allow things to run more smoothly for you and your family.
This is what I keep telling people to avoid. I tell people this and they will say, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get to it. But I to myself, I procrastinated a little bit, but I sat down with Tonette and I did my plan, because I have 2 small babies and I can't imagine that if something happens to me, my family has to go to court and let a judge decide what I've worked for, who gets it. I tell people all the time, I am not here to sell funerals. I just want you to put things in place. Yes, I'm here when passing happens, but my thing is, do what is right. You do it now to save the trouble.
And I just want to add here, because I have audiences in different places, in different countries, like, you can do this where you are also. Being from Barbados, a large part of my audience and my family members are there too. They can also seek these services with a funeral director in that country or an estate attorney like Tonette to do these things. And of course, there's always insurance services available everywhere. I remember working as a banking center manager and had a family that came in because the will was left in the safety deposit box. And how is that going to help someone if your will is in a safety deposit box? Like, have your items in a safe place. You can have a safe at home, but make sure that someone knows how to get into it. But going to the bank, you have to show proof of having a power of attorney or something, or be the administrator.
So I always like to tell people that there are different ways that your assets can be owned. One is that it's just in your name, okay? So if the safe deposit box is in your name at the time of your death, then there's a chance that your family would have to go through court in the probate process in order to access it. Then you can own assets jointly, which a lot of people do, and that's kind of like the short circuit way to do some estate planning. So that if it's you and say your spouse, one of you dies, because the spouse's name is on the asset, then they are able to still access that asset. And then the third way is things that pass through contract. So that's things like if you have a brokerage account, but you have identified beneficiaries who would get the asset in the event of your death. So those are some of the ways that assets are held and how they can be passed. Of course, I say to people that there's so many tools in order to do these things, and it really is just a matter of getting educated about the options that are available to you. So that's a lot of what I try and make sure that my clients understand. And again, Pat and Alva, you talked about this too. Communication is so key. Right? Yeah. You have to let your family members know Where is your stuff? How you
Exactly. Yeah.
access your stuff? And then, and then something that people don't think about now, but it's such an important thing, like even social media, even the things that you have in your phone, your iPhone, like that is actually part of your estate and part of your assets.
Oh,
So
wow.
obviously you're not going to give them access to that during your lifetime probably,
Right.
but to have it available to them so they can access it at your death is just part of that communication and some of that planning, and that's what I walk clients through.
Right. Like all of your passwords and things like that can be so
All of the
important.
passwords, yeah.
One simple thing that I did when I was in banking too was encourage people to have, like, if they're single, payable upon death, someone on their bank account so that that person can actually manage the funds up front if they need to also. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, they're like shortcuts you can use to do it without doing like a full estate plan. So I encourage any of my clients, a lot of my clients create trust. So the
okay.
trust can manage a lot of those assets, and the trust will really be effective if they're sick during their lifetime. And that happens a lot as you get older. You just need more assistance. But
Right.
if you don't do that, yeah, those pay on death designations, those sort of things, it can be very helpful.
But a trust is better than all of that.
Yeah, I mean, a trust
You're
solves
right.
a lot of
Yeah.
issues. A lot of issues.
Right.
It solves a lot of issues. So I think it's a great tool. And when I encourage people to use, especially if you're in New York, I practice in New York and New Jersey, and the probate process in New York is difficult. So
Yeah.
definitely, if you're in New York, a trust is a great tool to help your family avoid a lot of those issues and problems that you've heard the horror stories about.
Yeah, definitely. So people, let's make sure that we're getting those trusts in place. We're getting our life insurance in place. We are doing pre-planning. And most importantly, we're having conversations with our family because that is the key to avoiding all these issues and tears and fights that happen that I'm sure that people really do not expect to happen, but they really, really do. I've seen it, experienced that. So as we come to an end, I know we can go on and on with this subject, but I want you guys to just leave some thoughts with the audience, some closing words to really encourage them to remove these fears, especially you, Alva, because when we hear the word death, it's like, oh my gosh, what can you say as a funeral director that why this is so important to do some pre-planning?
Well, I always remember a personal conversation that a friend had with me where she said that she attributed most of her suffering in life because her mom passed when she was young. She believed her aunts and uncles didn't do right by her because
Mhm.
as an adult, she found out that the mom had left a sum of money. She said, she suffered throughout life. And obviously, those family
Mhm.
members didn't do what was right. I would say that if you have family members, I know sometimes we say, oh, if I die, just throw me in a hole, but it's more than that. You love them so much now. Would you want them to go through all of this pain? Like right now, that same love you have for them, would you just want them to, suffer at that point? Because
Right.
that's what causes suffering.
Thank you. Thank you. So we could avoid those aches and pains. Thank you so much. And you, Tonette.
Yeah, I would just, again, I have to reiterate to people how important it is to communicate with your family,
Mhm.
what your desires are, what you would want to have happen. I think so much you certainly have to find people that you trust, right, to handle
Right.
these things for you. So that's
Yeah.
crucial as well.
Right.
But
Yeah.
beyond having someone you can trust, it's really communicating to your family what it is that you want to have happen and communicating it in a legally binding way. And that's a lot of what my practice and my job and my mission is about, is to show people all of the ways that they can ensure that what they want to have happen at the time of their death does happen. So I encourage communication.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies, so much for coming on and sharing with my audience. I'm about living passionately, but I also am about being authentic, communicating, and just making important and smart decisions for everyone. It's so important to have these hard conversations. So thank you. I'm going to leave your contact information in the description of the video so that others can
Great.
find you, especially those that are in New York. And just reach out, get those trusts in place, get the insurances, start your pre-planning, and make this an easy transition for your family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
It was
you.
a pleasure.